You know, we hear the word development thrown around constantly, but what does it really mean? Is it just about shiny new buildings, super fast trains, and more money? Today, we're going to unpack this huge idea, not with some dry definition, but by looking at real, living examples from right here in India. Let's find out what development truly looks like on the ground.
But first, I've got a question for you. Okay, picture this. Two job offers land in your inbox. One pays an absolutely incredible salary, but it's in a city with terrible pollution, and you'll basically have zero time for friends or family. The other, it offers a decent, moderate salary, but it's in a clean, safe town with amazing public spaces and just a fantastic quality of life. So, which one do you pick? Seriously, think about it. Your answer to that question gets to the very heart of your personal idea of development, and that's exactly what we're digging into today.
You see, that little choice you just made in your head, it perfectly sets up our first big idea. There's just no single one-size-fits-all definition of development. Nope, it means completely different things to different people, and it all depends on their life situation and what they truly value.
So if we had to put a definition on it, we could say development is all about improving the quality of life. But here's the absolute key. It is not just about money. It's a whole mix of things. Yeah, a better income is part of the equation, for sure, but so is having good health, getting a great education, feeling free, and feeling safe and secure in your community.
Okay, now take a look at this. This table brings that idea to life. For a landless laborer, what does development look like? It might just mean getting more days of work and having a local school where their kids can get a real shot at a better future. Simple, right? But for a prosperous farmer, it's totally different. They're thinking about higher prices for their crops, maybe even having the ability to send their kids to study overseas. And then you've got a girl from a wealthy city family. For her, development could be as simple and as profound as having the exact same freedom her brother has. See? Same country, but worlds apart in what they're aspiring to. It all depends on where you're standing.
And this leads to an even trickier idea. You see, these different dreams, they don't always exist peacefully side by side. Sometimes they're in direct conflict. This quote here says it all, really. What one group sees as progress can actually be destructive for another group.
And wow, this image just says it all, doesn't it? The words from this rickshaw puller are so powerful. He understands that his hard work is essential for someone else's progress, for the city's economy to function. But at the same time, he feels completely trapped in a system that stops him from achieving his own development. It's just a gut-wrenching snapshot of what unequal development feels like.
And this kind of conflict isn't just some theory in a textbook. It happens on a massive scale. Let's take a huge real-world example from India. Building a gigantic dam, like the Sardar Sarovar on the Narmada River, well, that's a massive symbol of development for industrialists who need electricity and for people in cities who need water. But for the thousands of Adivasi people whose ancestral homes and lands were swallowed by the water, for them, it was complete destruction. It forces us to ask a really difficult question. Whose development matters more?
So, all of this naturally leads us to the most common and maybe the simplest way we try to measure development: money. We often hear developed country and just think rich country. But as we just saw with the dam example, a project that makes a lot of money can also cause a lot of pain. So clearly, income alone can't be the whole story.
Now, the standard tool that gets used to measure this is something called per capita income. It's actually a pretty simple formula. You just take the total income of a country or a state, and you divide it by the total number of people living there. It's an average. And on the surface, that sounds logical, right? A higher average should mean people are better off. But let's see if that's actually true.
Okay, let's look at the numbers for 3 Indian states. If we only look at per capita income, Haryana seems to be the clear winner, right? Its average income is way higher than Kerala's, and it's just miles ahead of Bihar. If this was the only piece of data you had, you'd probably say, well, case closed. Haryana is the most developed.
But is it really that simple? Is life automatically better in a place just because the average income is higher? This is where things get really interesting, because averages can hide a whole lot. So let's peel back another layer and see what's underneath.
Whoa! Now look at this. Let's start with the infant mortality rate, a tragic but really powerful indicator of how good a region's overall health system is. In Haryana, for every 1,000 babies born, 28 don't survive their first year. Now look at Kerala. That number is just 6. It's a tiny fraction of the rate in Haryana. And education? Kerala's literacy rate is a massive 94%. All of a sudden, that picture of Haryana being the most developed state starts to crumble, doesn't it?
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that money in your pocket doesn't mean much if your children can't get good health care or a solid education. Haryana might have the higher average income, but the data here strongly suggests that Kerala provides a better overall quality of life. And this proves it. Income is important, but it is a dangerously incomplete way to measure development.
You know, this whole problem, trying to figure out how to measure what truly matters, it's not just an issue when we're comparing Indian states. It's a global challenge. For decades, economists and world leaders started realizing that just looking at income wasn't enough, so they began searching for a better, more complete way to measure human well-being.
And that search led to the creation of the Human Development Index, or HDI. The United Nations uses it to get a much fuller picture of a country. And as you can see, it doesn't just throw out income. That's still a piece of the puzzle, representing the standard of living, but it balances it with two other crucial pillars: the health of the people, which is measured by life expectancy, and their level of education. It's a much more balanced and meaningful scorecard for a country's real progress.
And when you use a tool like the HDI, you find some really surprising things. A country's massive size or its huge overall economy doesn't automatically mean it's going to have a high rank. For example, our smaller neighbor, Sri Lanka, has often ranked higher than India on these human development measures. It's a powerful reminder that smart government policies that focus on health and education for everybody can sometimes have a bigger impact than just raw economic growth alone.
Okay, so we've talked about personal goals, we've talked about the problem with national income, and the importance of human well-being. But there is one final, massive piece of this puzzle. And honestly, it might be the most important one of all, especially for your generation.
And that missing piece is sustainability. Because really, what good is all this progress, more money, better schools, longer lives, if it's all built on a foundation that's about to collapse? Sustainable development asks one simple but profound question. Can we meet our own needs today without basically stealing the resources that our children and grandchildren will need to meet theirs?
This quote, it just gets right to the heart of the matter. It completely reframes the challenge. The problem isn't necessarily that we lack resources. It's about how we use them, how we manage them, and how we distribute them. It lifts development from being just an economic question to a deeply moral one.
And please, don't think this is some abstract problem for the future. It's happening right now, all around us, right here in India. Just think about the shocking rate that groundwater levels are dropping under the fields of Punjab. Think about trying to breathe the toxic, smog-filled air in Delhi every single winter. Think about farmers whose entire way of life is being threatened by monsoons that are becoming more and more unpredictable. This is the real cost of a development that gambled away the future for short-term gains.
All right, so let's tie this all together. After everything we've looked at, what is real development? Well, it's not a race for the highest income for just a few people. It's about building a society that offers a high quality of life and equal opportunities for everyone. It's about valuing the health of our communities and the education of our kids just as much as we value the numbers in a bank account. And maybe most importantly, it has to be done in a way that builds a safe and prosperous future for the generations that are going to come after us. And that leaves me with one final question for you to really think about. Based on everything we've talked about, the conflicting goals, the limits of just looking at income, and the urgent need for sustainability, what do you think India's single most important development goal should be for the next 10 years? There's no one right answer, of course, but thinking critically about that question, that's the first step we can all take towards shaping a much better future.